Good evening, everybody. We will be starting momentarily. If you could just let me know in the chat if the sound is okay, and then we can get started. All right, hello everybody. My name is Greg Vishnamalakala from the Distance Learning Department of the University of Nicosia. Today we'll be conducting training regarding how to create and host Webex sessions through Moodle, as well as all the different processes related to using Moodle, related to using Webex, and how to ensure that your session runs smoothly. I've sent through the chat of today's live stream a registration form. If you could take the time to fill it in, that would be great, so we can mark the attendance of today's training. At any point, feel free to use the chat to ask any questions. Considering that we're a small group today, I can take the time to answer your questions individually during today's training. And also at any point, if you'd like me to repeat anything or slow down or speed up, again, let me know through the chat so that we can do so. All right, so today, as I mentioned, we will be covering the use of Webex. I hope that everybody had the opportunity to attend yesterday's training in relation to the use of Moodle in their courses and generally how to use the Moodle platform. So what we'll be doing today is we'll be logging into our Moodle account once again. So using the credentials that have already been sent out to most of you, you can log into the Moodle platform. The platform is located at courses.unic.ac.cy. I'll be sending that through the chat so you can have quick access to it if you want to bookmark that in your browser. I want to make a quick note that today's training, as well as any manuals or processes that I covered today, will be specific for the use of Google Chrome browser. Not that you're unable to use any browser on your computer, but all of the department's guides in relation to Moodle and Webex are prepared in relation to Google Chrome, the Google Chrome browser. So let's get started here. In order to start using Webex for your live sessions, again, you need to have access to the university's Moodle platform. Again, your credentials should have already been sent to you. If you have any issues with logging in, or for example, you do not know your credentials, please contact Stelios Demosthenos. I will send his details here through the chat as well, so you can have his details at the ready. Again, if you're unable to log into the platform or do not know your details, you can contact Stelios, who should be able to assist you. All right, so let's log into the platform, again, which is available at courses.unic.ac.cy, and this will provide you with your dashboard. The dashboard, if I'm repeating something that's been said yesterday, the dashboard presents all of the courses that you're currently teaching this current semester. displayed here in a card form. So each card represents a different course. So I will be using the Studying Online course for today's training. Don't expect to see the same course within your account. This is just a course that I've put together quickly to demonstrate the features and functions of various items. All right, so the first thing we're going to cover today is how to set up the Webex activity within your Moodle course. So once you've opened the course that you want to book your first Webex session for, you'll have it open up, and before we can make any changes to the course, you first want to enable editing, because you can't do anything within your course unless when I say you can't do anything, you can't make any changes in regards to content within your course without having enabling editing. So in order to enable editing, go to the gear icon on the upper right side of the course page, click on that, and then select the second option that says Turn Editing On. All right. Once editing is turned on, the page will reload, and you'll notice some slight changes within the course. For example, there's a Move and Edit Name icon next to every activity and resource, as well as an Edit menu next to every activity and resource. Under every section within the course, you'll also have this ability to add an activity or resource. All right, so the Webex activity that we want to add into our course is, as I said, an activity. So to add an activity into the course, you'll find the specific area in the course that you want to add it into. Click the Add an Activity or Resource button, and this will display a menu for you to select a variety of activities and resources to enter into your course. The list is sorted alphabetically and again divided by activities and resources. What we're looking for is the Webex activity, which is listed here as Webex. So what you want to do is you want to select it and then click Add. Okay, this will provide you with the general settings for the activity. The only thing that you need to worry yourself about is entering a name. Keep it generic, as this is something that you will only need to add to your course once. You do not have to create multiple Webex activities for the same course, because all of the sessions for this course will be stored in this one activity. So we can call it something that's generic for the course. So for example, Webex Sessions. All right, once you've entered the name, click Save and Return to Course. And your activity will be added to the specific area that you added it in the course. You can always move it around the course by using the Move icon to drag and drop it to your desired location. And once you're ready to set up your first Webex session, you can go ahead and click on that. The first thing though, before you can add a session, is you need to ensure that your Webex account is validated. All right. So in order to do that, you need to go to the Webex website, which I have open here. That's globaltraining.webex.com. I'll paste that here into the chat as well, so you have it. And you need to sign in to this website using the credentials that have been provided to you. Because I already have my account validated, me signing in right now won't show you the process that you need to follow. So what I will do is I'll load up the manual on how to activate your account. And essentially you'll follow these steps the first time you want to sign into the website. So as I mentioned, you'll go to globaltraining.webex.com, log into your Webex account. Again, your credentials should have been sent to you already. Sorry for that. Your credentials should have already been sent to you already. And then once you log in, you'll be requested to change your password. You'll provide an old password and a new password that you can remember. You'll need to enter the new password twice. Once you've reset your password, you'll be requested to verify your email address that is associated with your account. Okay, so what you'll need to do at this point is you'll need to go to your email inbox, find the email to verify your account, click the link that it provides you, and then your account is already set up and ready to use within your Moodle course. So again, let's assume that we've validated our account, which I have validated my account. So now I can go ahead and start creating my Webex sessions. So I'd like to repeat at this point that if you have any questions, if you'd like me to repeat something, feel free to ask me within the chat and I will address the question as it appears. So again, let's book our first Webex session. So we click on the Webex activity, and the first time we create the activity within the course, we need to set up the activity. So the only thing you need to do under the Setup tab is enable the Virtual Meetings tab. This will allow us to create our Webex sessions. And this is something you only need to do once. There'll be a lot of one-time procedures that you need to do before conducting your first session, and I'll make sure to highlight which procedures are one-off and which ones are things that you need to do every time. So setting up the activity within the course is a one-off thing. So again, select Virtual Meetings under the Choose Your Features and click Apply. This will give you access to a Virtual Meetings tab, and it's through here that you will create your Webex sessions. All right. So to get started, you click New Meeting. And because again, this is the first time that you're creating a session within this course, it will ask you to sign into the activity within the course. Again, this is a one-time procedure. So you'll click Sign In to Webex Meetings, enter your username and password provided, and then you can click Sign In. This will take you to the meeting creation form. So you can see here that we can open up a new meeting. So the recommended settings for this are to create a training session. The university does have the ability to create meeting sessions and events, but those are specific to their names. Meeting sessions are used for meetings primarily. Training is used for teaching or to deliver content, and events are used for large scale seminars. So I recommend, and the university recommends, that you use Webex Training as a host center. In the name, it's also recommended that you include something that's identifiable. So for example, include your course code in the title. Avoid including any special symbols like the and symbol or the at symbol or the underscore, as these might sometimes cause errors when you're trying to create your session. So the ideal format for a session title is a course code and maybe 1 or 2 words to describe what the session is. Try and keep it short and concise, 3-4 words maximum, to make sure that the name isn't too long, because a long name may also cause an issue when trying to schedule the session. It may produce an error. So again, have a name that includes your course code, as well as, if you choose to, include a short title. You can follow that by selecting the date that you want your upcoming session to be held on. So let's say I'd like to book a session for this coming Monday. That will be the 30th of March at 9 in the morning. So I select the hour 9. You can keep it at 0 minutes. And also please take note of AM and PM. AM is for the morning, PM is for the afternoon. If you'd like to do a session at 12 o'clock lunchtime, that's 12 PM. Because we do see a lot of errors with the AM and PM, I just wanted to make sure we point that out in today's training. So right now I have my session scheduled for the 30th of January at 9 AM. Another point that I'd like to make is try and set up your sessions as early in advance as possible. It's recommended at least 3 days, just so your students can have time to go into their course and also see the notification regarding the upcoming session. the activity does not currently allow you to schedule a session in advance or anything less than an hour. So the time that we have right now is 7:15. I cannot book a session for 8:15. It needs to be more than 1 hour from the time that I'm booking the session. This is why I'm saying, in order to avoid any of these unnecessary errors, try and book your sessions as early in advance as possible. So I've selected my date and my time. I click Done. And then we can move on to the next setting, which is duration. So duration is the expected time that your session will probably take. So my course usually runs again at 9 a.m. every Monday, and it usually lasts 3 hours because again, it's recommended to book your sessions on the same day and time that the face-to-face equivalent would run. So Monday morning at 9 p.m. and it usually runs for 3 hours. So we have that set here. I'd like to also point out that students who try to join the session after the expected duration, so for example, for this session that I'm trying to set up, if they try to join the session at 1 o'clock, the students will not be able to do that because the expected duration has run and the session will no longer appear for them in their upcoming sessions. So that's a quick point regarding duration. You are able to repeat the sessions. For example, I know my session will take place every Monday, so I can have them automatically set up in a weekly basis, for example. So for example, every week, once a week, every Monday for the next 3 weeks, you could have it per se. It's not necessary to create a weekly recurrence for your session. I would advise to avoid using the recurrence completely because there have been some issues, especially in the last couple of days, regarding the recordings of sessions that have been set up using the recurrence. So if possible, set up your sessions one at a time for every week. There's no problem in creating all of your sessions from today for the coming week, so you can just set them all up in advance. But again, if possible, try and avoid using the recurrence options because that might create some issues regarding the recordings and how they appear to the students. So to quickly run over the settings here, make sure you click Training Center, again because all of our manuals related to Moodle and Webex refer to Training Center. In the name, try and include your course code and a short and brief description of the name of the session. Select the date and time, again recommended to be the equivalent of the face-to-face session, and again, if possible, avoid using the recurrence as it may create issues with the recordings. Once you have everything set up, click Create Meetings. You'll notice here that your meeting is now added to the Upcoming Meetings tab. So your students will have the same view here. The students will come to the Webex activity, they'll go to the Upcoming tab, and they'll see all the sessions that have been scheduled for this specific course. Okay? When it's time to start a session, actually before I move on here, I'd like to leave the floor open for about a minute. If you guys have any questions, please let me know through the chat, and I will cover them there. We have a question here saying you only have the option for office hours. All right, so we have a question here regarding office hours. I believe that's under the setup. So you're telling me that you only have the option to select office hours here. If you can do me a favor, send an email to Stelios, and Stelios, if you can forward that to me so I can just double check the settings within your specific account, because you might not have the functionality enabled in your account. It will be a quick fix just to enable that for you. Okay, so again, Helen, if you could just send a screenshot of what you see to Stelios, and we'll see if we can sort that out. We have another comment here saying that you had an issue with the sound, that you had an echo, so you ended the session and created a new one. All right, just at the time of the session. Yes, this thing that I mentioned regarding the scheduling sessions within an hour of the live, this is an issue that has come to our attention today. It's something new. So this is why we're saying trying to schedule things as early in advance as possible. How about editing bookings? I'll show you that in a moment. Okay. We also have a comment here that you set a recurring session because that's what we told you to do in the previous session. Again, a lot of this is a learning process for our department as well. We only applied this tool within the last week since we've been under lockdown. So it's a learning process for us as well. New issues come up. That I don't want to say every day, but new issues do arise. And as they do arise, we do our best to overcome them. That sometimes involves changing the process in which work is conducted, changing the process of the ways the activity is set up or used. So again, this is a learning, there's a learning curve for all of this, for all of us. Okay, so I'll go back. Yes, there is a comment here. We have to practice in order to get familiar. I agree 100% with that. I'll address a question here regarding editing. This was our next thing to be covered here. So what you can see here is I've scheduled a session here. Under actions, you as the lecturer have three options. You have three options. You have host, which is what you'll do when it's time to start the session. You can edit and you can delete. Deleting a session will remove it from the upcoming sessions, and it will no longer be available for the students. With regard to the recurring sessions, if someone has already booked a session that is recurring, if you delete a recurring session, it will delete the upcoming sessions as well. So this is another reason why trying to avoid the recurring sessions, because if you delete the one instance of the recurring session, it deletes all of the upcoming ones. I can't confirm if that also deletes the past occurrences of the session under past meetings, so I cannot say anything about that 100%. Again, regarding the recurring sessions, you cannot edit recurring sessions. You only have the option to host and delete. Another reason may be trying to avoid using the recurring sessions. Whenever you schedule a one-time session for every week, you do have the ability to edit that session. And when you click on edit, it provides you the ability to edit some of the settings that you entered. Not everything, but some. And those settings are editing the name, changing the specific date of the session, and the duration. You cannot at this point add a recurrence, and you cannot change the host center. So if you accidentally selected meeting instead of training, unfortunately you'll have to delete the session and recreate it. All right, I have a comment here. So before I get to the comments in the chat, I'd like to finish with the edit here. So again, you can edit the name, you can edit the meeting date, and you can edit the duration. Once you've done any edits that you want regarding these, you can click Update Meeting, and the updates will be posted here. We have a comment in the chat regarding another tab available here concerning classroom collaboration. The classroom collaboration involves Webex Teams. Webex Teams, I'm not sure if that's a service that we have at the university, so I can't say anything about that with certainty. But if you want to remove that tab from the activity, all you have to do is go to the Setup tab and remove the classroom collaboration and click apply, and then it will be removed from the activity and will remove any confusion that you or the students might have regarding that service. So right now all the university is using in this period is the virtual meetings. Okay, so your Webex credentials only apply to virtual meetings, not to the classroom collaboration. Okay, I'll get back here to the training at this point. We have some comments regarding error messages. So again, because the tool is relatively new to the university and new to my team as well as to all the lecturers, some error messages may appear when creating a session or editing a session, what have you. For example, the time zone issue. The time zone issue or the account validation or communication with the service is not available. Anything in that vein, that can be easily fixed most of the time, maybe not all the time. Most of the time it can be fixed by simply clicking log out, and then that will log you out of the activity. You need to sign into Webex again. Click sign in and refresh the page. Usually that removes a lot of the errors because your account needs to sign out, sign in, get a clean start, and then go from there. So try and do that if you still get the time zone error. There's a comment here, your screen is out of focus in the recording. Are you referring to the live stream currently, or are you referring to out of focus during a live Webex session? If anyone else is having issues with seeing the content of my screen, please let me know. I can zoom in slightly. Otherwise, it might be a buffering issue on your end. Okay, so I'll continue here. So what we've seen now is how to add the Webex activity to our course, how to add, well, after we added the activity, we validated our account, again, a once-off procedure. We entered our Webex activity, we signed in, again, a one-off procedure per course, and then we added our session. So we also looked at, once we added our session, how to edit the meeting, edit the session details. Again, editing is only available if you create the one-off meetings, not a recurring meeting. And let's assume at this point it is 8:30 on a Monday morning, Monday the 30th, and it's time for me to start my session. So let's say it's time for me to start the session here. What you'll do to start your session is you come back to the course and you come back to this activity, and at the time to start the session, try and do this again. In advance, let's say 30 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes in advance, to make sure that you have time to edit, to check your connection, to check that everything is under control and that you have no issues with audio or video. When it's time to start the session, you click on host. So I've clicked on host for my session on Monday morning, again assuming that right now it is Monday morning and it's time to start the session. And because it's the first time that I'm running a Webex session, so again this is another once-off process, I need to add this Webex extension to my browser. Okay, Webex cannot run without the extension being installed. If you are concerned about any security measures or any access that this extension has on your browser, feel free to remove it every time you finish the session. Just make sure that you add it with every session that you do. So in order to add the extension to your browser, you click Add Webex to Chrome. It's the green button here. This will open up the Chrome Web Store for you to add the extension. I will send you the link directly to this extension through the chat, so that if you want to install it in advance, so you don't have to worry about this come Monday and you need to start your sessions, you can install the extension from now. So once you get to this page, you click Add to Chrome. It will provide you with one more verification. If you want to add the extension to your browser, you click Add Extension. All right, and what you'll notice here is the Webex icon. Let me switch back to the browser. The Webex icon is now available in my browser. Sometimes when you click that Add Extension icon, the Add Extension button, sorry, it will download a file to install the extension. All you have to do is click on the installation file and it will do the same thing and install the extension into your browser. I have a question here. Where do we click Host? The Host button is under Action. It is the first option that you have for any session that you have booked. So I've booked this session to take place, and when it's time to start the session, you click on Host. It's the first button available there. Okay, once you click Host, again, one-time procedure, you need to install the Webex extension and your session will open. If nothing else goes wrong, your session will open. At this point, I would like to pause the session to let you know of some minimum requirements for Webex. So Webex doesn't run on every single computer. It has minimum requirements, and those minimum requirements can be found on the university's website. I will load that up for you here. Okay, so Webex, sorry about that. The Webex application can run on any Windows or Mac PC, provided that if it is Windows, it's at least Windows 8.1 and Windows 10. On Mac, it needs to be at least Mac OS 10.13 or above. You can view a live session on a mobile or a tablet if you do not have a computer that's compatible, but it might be a little bit difficult to present on a mobile or tablet. So we usually recommend to our lecturers to present from a computer, whether it's Windows or Mac. That's your preference or of what you have at home. All right, so these are the minimum requirements. You need to have at least a Windows computer of Windows 8.1 or Windows 10, Mac OS of 10.13 or higher. Okay, if you do not meet those specific minimum requirements, most likely the session won't even launch. You'll get stuck on a pending, on a continuous loop of trying to open the session. All right, I'll send the link here for the minimum requirements through the chat, so you can also have a look at those when you get the chance. Okay. So this is the Webex training application. Okay, so again, all of our manuals and all the training we provide it pertains to Webex training and not Webex meetings. All right, so this is the Webex training application. I'll take you through the various parts of the application so that you know what each part does. Okay, the first thing that there's 3 things that you should check before you start any session. there's three things that you need to check before you start any session. Firstly, am I connected correctly? You can always tell if you or any of your students are connected correctly if you have this computer icon to the to the left of your name. If you do not see this icon next to someone's name, including your own name, it means that person has not connected correctly to the session. So how do we overcome that issue? If someone is not connected correctly, all you have to do and all you have to instruct your student to do is once they get access to the Webex application here, all they have to do is go to the audio menu found on the upper left side of the application. They need to go to Integrated Voice Conference, and then they need to click Join Conference. Because I'm connected correctly right now, it says End Conference. But for someone who isn't connected, who does not have that computer icon to the left of their name, they need to go to Audio, Integrated Voice Conference, and then click Join Conference. The issue with someone not being connected correctly to the session is that they will not be able to use their microphone during the session, which obviously affects you as a teacher. That's how you will be presenting through. You'll need to speak to your students, so it's very important that you are connected. For your students, if they are not connected, they won't be able to hear. They won't be able to hear anything that you are presenting to them, nor will they be able to use their microphones if you give them that option during the session. All they'll be able to do is view. So it's very important for everybody within the session to be connected. Because we do not have the support team to monitor every single face-to-face session through, every Webex session for a face-to-face course, we would like our lecturers to just be wary of certain things throughout the session to try and guide their students to make sure that they're connected, make sure that they have the full experience of being in the session. We are well aware that not all the lecturers are, let's say, tech savvy, or it's not expected of them to know everything right off the bat, but within time we believe that everything will come smoothly and it will be much easier process for everybody if we all, try and learn these new skills. So again, first thing to check, make sure that you are connected correctly. If you find that any of your students aren't connected correctly, provide them with those steps to follow. It might take a student a couple of minutes to connect, so again, it's exercise patience with the student. If they're not connected within 5 minutes, then you can send them the information of how to connect. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is to enable the chat for the students. So the chat panel is available to students by default, but by default, students can only communicate with you. They cannot communicate with each other. They can use the chat to send messages, but those messages will only be viewable by you. So in order to have this open dialogue within a course during a live session, and to make sure that students actually benefit from what other students have to say within the chat, we need you as a lecturer and as a host of the session to enable this functionality for the student. In order to do that, that's done from the participants menu this time. So you need to go to the participants menu found again on the upper left side of the application. Go down to Assign Privileges, and this will open up the Assign Privileges dialog here. All you need to select is the All Attendees found in the first column of the Communications section. All right, so again, I'll repeat. You go to Participants, you go to Assign Privileges, then you'll select All Attendees in the first column, i.e. under Chat With, select All Attendees under the Communications area, and then click OK. If you're using a Mac, the Communications will be in a separate tab, so you'll have two tabs instead of all of the options here. you'll just select on the Communications tab and then select all attendees under the Chat With. That's if you're using a Mac. Then you can click OK, and students at this point will have the ability to send messages to the entire group. So anything that they write in the chat will be available to all participants. Okay. The third and the most important thing that you need to do whenever you start a session is to make sure that it is being recorded. This is an issue that we have with some of the sessions that have already taken place. The lecturers may have accidentally forgotten to record the session. In the trainings that took place this morning with the students, and in the training sessions that took place this morning, we have also provided your students with some tips to identify if their live session is being recorded, and I'll show those to you as well. We have a comment here before I show you the recording. Can we make it so they can talk to all at the same time but not whisper to each other? So unfortunately, it's either one or the other. It's either we only allow them to chat directly to you as a teacher, or they are able to chat with everybody. There's no pick and choose, unfortunately, because the university didn't design the software. We can't exactly add additional functionality. So when the student is using the chat, they'll be able to see here a list of all the students as well, and they'll be able to select a specific student and have a conversation via chat directly to them. That's not something that we can prevent from happening, but it serves a purpose to allow the students to be able to talk to everybody, because it's for the benefit of everybody usually. All right, so I'll get back to the third and most important thing that you need to check before you start a session, which is the recording. The recording, you can start it by clicking on the recording button at the top right of the course. Top right of the Webex activity. By clicking there, it doesn't start the recording, it just opens up the recording panel. And the recording panel can be found on the lower left side of the screen here. All right. So this opens the recorder panel. From here, to start the recording, you just have to click the record button. It's the circular button here, and you'll get a message that your session is being recorded and the duration will start running. Okay, so this is one way that you can tell if your session is recording. Another way you can tell that your session is recording is if you see this recording label on the lower left side. So this is something that we've informed your students about. If they see the word recording here on the lower left, they know that their session is being recorded. If you click on pause, the recorder icon will turn yellow, the pause button will start flashing, the time will stop, i.e. pause, and the label now says session recording is paused. So you have these two ways of identifying if your recording is running or not. I'll provide you with a third way of checking your recording status once we get to the sharing of content. All right. So you can click on the pause button again to resume the recording of this session. Okay, so you can pause and start the recording as much as you want during your session. For example, if you have a break during a 3-hour session, you can hit pause to take that break so that the pause itself isn't being recorded, so you don't have about 20 minutes of silence in your session. You can pause it and resume it when you resume your class. All right. When you finish conducting your session, you can click on the stop button, and that will essentially end the recording. And then once your recording has been generated, it should be posted to your course automatically. But we'll get to that once we've covered the Webex application. Okay. So recording is very important. Make sure you start it before you start teaching, just to ensure that it is actually being recorded. Okay, so now that we have the three initial things that you do when you start a session, we can go on to the functionality of Webex itself. So what we see in front of us here is the Webex application, which is divided into various parts. We have the content area in the center. We have the participants panel here on the upper right side, and the chat below it. Okay, so this is the default layout. We have a comment here saying, what if we hide the participants list from the students? Will they not be able to see the other participants? Unfortunately, not. By hiding the participants here, that just hides it for yourself, because the students also have the participants and the chat options for themselves. They do not have the record. So the student can open and close participants for themselves. So unfortunately, we cannot stop them from communicating with each other or seeing who else is there. So the participants panel here, there's a number of important things that you want to be, focused on. First thing was, are you connected correctly? That was the computer icon here. The Webex icon next to your name means that you are the current presenter. So whoever has this icon to the left of their name means that they are the person that is actively presenting to the class, let's say, and is able to share content with the audience. So there can only be one presenter at any one time. If in your live sessions you want your students to present material or to make a presentation to the course or anything along those lines, you can change who has the presenter role by just right-clicking someone's name. You have the option to change role to, and you can make a student a presenter. Because you're the person that's hosting the session, you essentially have the highest role in the session. You can always revoke the presenter role from a student and take it back for yourself once the student has finished presenting. So you can use this sort of tip during your sessions to make your session more, let's say, interactive with the students if you have any presentations with them. All right, so we have the presenter icon here, you have your connection icon here, you have to the right of your name a webcam icon and your microphone icon. So if you want to enable your webcam during a live session, essentially you just click on this button here and your webcam will be enabled. I currently do not have a webcam installed on my computer, so I cannot click this button because I do not have one available. If I did have one, I can click it and the webcam feed, will be displayed up here for you and your students. When it's time for you to start your session, you can also open your microphone by clicking the microphone icon. Your microphone will be enabled and your students will then be able to hear you. So for the microphone, if it's red, it means it's off. If it's gray, it means it's on. For the webcam, it's sort of the opposite. If it's gray, it's off, and if it's blue, it's on. All right. So those are the icons that you might see next to your name or next to a student's name. For your students' microphones are generally disabled at the start of every session. This is to ensure the quality of the session, because if you have, let's say, 30 students in your session and you have 30 microphones switched on, that can produce a lot of noise and a lot of audio feedback and echo during the session. So we always recommend that you have your students' microphones switched off. You as a presenter and as a host have the ability to control students' microphones. You can switch them on and off when you please. You cannot, unfortunately, control their webcams, so just bear that in mind. So your students' microphones are switched off by default. If for any reasons you see students joining the session and their microphones are on, you can simply click on the microphones next to each student to switch them off again. All right? Just bear that in mind when you're doing a live session. Another thing, and this is something that we've informed your students of, is the ability to raise hand. Because again, your students' microphones will generally be off most of the time. If they want to ask a question, we've told them to simply click the raise hand icon that they have under participants. Once they click that, you are, as a presenter, will hear a beep, and you'll see a hand appear next to the student's name who is requesting to speak. So a hand icon, you can take it as you would in class. If a student puts their hand up, they essentially want to ask a question or they want to make some form of comment. So it's essentially the ask to speak signal. You can go ahead and find the student that has raised their hand, open their microphone. Once they're done, you can switch off their microphone and continue with the lesson. All right. You also have I hope that point was clear, because the students will probably be using that quite often if they're not using the chat itself. Okay, the next series of buttons that we have here in the participants is this check mark and this cross. So essentially yes and no. So you can ask your students basic questions, whether they agree or disagree about something, and you can ask them to use the appropriate button to show, to show their opinion on the specific matter. If someone clicks yes or no, you'll see the appropriate mark next to their name. And in doing so, you're essentially creating a quick poll for your students, a one or the other poll. And you can quickly see the results of that poll by clicking on this feedback's results icon here. So you'll see here of all the participants that have answered, how many of them have said yes, how many of them have said no. All right, so it's a quick way again to engage your students, to get some sort of feedback from them regarding a specific topic that you've provided them or a question. Give them something to do to stay engaged in the session, because again, you don't have them physically in front of you in class. You want to try and emulate some sort of interaction with them wherever possible. Okay, the speed up and slow down icons are only available to your attendees. Again, if anyone has enabled these, you'll see the specific icon next to their name. That's essentially them telling you to either go faster or slow down. Then we just have an emoticon icon that allows you to put a small emoji next to your name. Again, to gauge how your participants are feeling. All right. Okay, that's everything I have to cover regarding the participants panel here. I'll quickly make a note about the chat right now. So, as we mentioned before, it's one of the 3 things that you should do when you start a session, and make sure you enable the chat for all students. Again, if some lecturers have an issue with that, you don't necessarily have to do it, but it is highly recommended that you enable the all participants chat, the all attendees chat for your students. And then your students can use this as a main form of communication with you to ask their questions in class. So you'll see who sent the message and to what audience. If something is sent to you personally, you'll see in parentheses private as well. So you can see from the person that it came from, directed to you, if it's a personal message only for you. You can also choose to respond through the chat, but I find that it's good practice if a student asks a question, read out the question for everybody. Read out the question for everybody and then answer the question. All right, because maybe someone sent it to you by accident. So instead of asking them to retype the question, best to just read it out and respond to the question. I have a question here in the chat. Can you please repeat the part regarding the yes or no icons? So I'll get to that in a moment when we're done with the chat. So essentially the chat is like any messaging tool. You write your message in the box provided, you click enter or you press send, and the message will be displayed to the audience that you've sent it to, whether it's all participants all panelists, which are those who are listed under the panelists section, which is usually just yourself, or all attendees. All attendees are just those listed below the attendees, which is generally your students. If something is sent to all participants, this is sent to both panelists and attendees. Okay, so back to the question in the chat. Can I repeat that part regarding the yes or no options here? So the yes or no options can be used to get quick feedback from your students for a yes or no type question. For example, if you ask the students a question, do you think self-isolation is necessary? As an example, you can ask them to press either yes or no and that will be their way of inputting their answer. And once all the students or the majority of the students have submitted their answer, you can always click on the feedback results icon here, and you'll be able to see their options, their answers change. It's almost instantaneous as the students enter their answers, whether it's yes or no. There's no in between, there's just the two options, yes and no. I hope that clarifies the question in the chat. Okay, so we've covered the panels on the right side of the page, sorry, and now we have the central area here, which is our content area. So the things that you need to worry about here are this invite and remind here. So if there's anyone that you would like to invite to your course, so for example, any guest lecturers or any specific students that are having trouble accessing Moodle, perhaps, you never know, you can always use this invite and remind option here to click on that and send emails, invitations to specific people. So all you have to do is enter an email address here and click send, and that will email that person with the details in order for them to join the session. They don't need to have a Moodle account, they don't need to have a Webex account, they just will join the session and they will automatically be placed under attendees. If the person you've invited is a guest speaker or a second lecturer, you can again right-click on their name, change their role, and assign them the specific role that they should have in the session itself. So that's invite and remind. But the main purpose of Webex Sessions, and I know we haven't even touched upon that so far, is presenting, sharing content. How do you actually teach your students? How do you get the content across? As you've seen up until now, this is just a white surface for you to just, chat to the students or maybe talk to them with your microphone on. You can actually share content from here. So we have this option here. It usually says share my desktop, but because I had a previous session earlier in the day, it's now defaulted to share file. So if you would like to, let's say, share multiple resources throughout your session, that might be a website, a file, a PowerPoint, an article, anything at all, and you'd like to share many things throughout your presentation, the easiest thing for you to do is click share my desktop. So you can click on the arrow here, click find share my desktop, and select that. Ignore my monitor here. We have this. So share my desktop allows you to share everything that you're doing on your screen. So anything that you do on your screen, again, whether that's browsing your website, whether that's going to your course in Moodle, whether that's showing your students a PowerPoint presentation or any documents within your course, whatever you do on screen, your students will see that as well. So all your mouse gestures and all of that, whatever you do on your screen, your students will view it as well. All right. So this is the most popular way our lecturers share content within the course. All right, so this is why I'm showing it to you first. So you share your desktop, you conduct your lesson, you can go to various websites, you can open a PowerPoint presentation. The only thing that I would say regarding sharing your desktop is that if you have any videos to share, the students won't be able to hear the video if you're sharing your desktop, because Webex only sends audio through microphones. It doesn't send system audio. So if you have any videos, especially if they're, let's say, YouTube videos, send the students the link in the chat and have them watch at the same time that you are, if you're going to be discussing it at the same time. So that's the one thing that I would say about Share My Desktop. It doesn't send system audio, but everything else that goes on your screen, students will be able to see it as well. But what you may have noticed now that I've shared my desktop, the participants panel is gone, the chat box is gone, and the recorder is gone. All right. To bring those up, all you have to do is hover over the blue bar that appears at the top of your page. So when you share your desktop, this blue bar becomes available. If you're on a Mac, I believe the bar is green, if I'm not mistaken. You can hover over that and it will lower down. And again, you have several options here. You can open up your participants panel, you can open up your chat panel, and you can open up your recorder panel as well. So you can control everything that we were doing before when we weren't sharing a desktop from this view as well. So you can see all your students, you can monitor the chat, you can monitor the recording again. You can do that all while you're sharing your desktop. I just want to point out that if you're sharing your desktop and you have these panels open, try and make sure that the panels aren't blocking any of the content, because your students won't be able to see anything behind the panels. So if you have a PowerPoint presentation, or let's say I'm presenting this course outline, don't have a panel like blocking any content, because obviously students will not be able to see anything behind those panels. Try and keep them off to the side. If you want, you can close them, because you're always able to reopen them at any point throughout the session. But we always advise to our lecturers, keep the recorder open so you can have an eye on it, make sure that it is recording, make sure that no errors occur while it's recording, and possibly have the chat open, because again, your students will be using that the most in order to communicate with you. All right, I mentioned before regarding recording, methods that we provided your students and also for you to identify if a session is being recorded. So for you as a lecturer, you'll have the recorder panel open. You can see whether it's recording or not based on the text that's written here, or if the pause is flashing. Another way that you and your students can identify if a session is recording is from this little circle that's available in the blue bar. So you can see here that the circle is yellow, which means that the session is paused. So if I hover over that, you see here it says the session recording is paused. If we resume the recording, that will change to red and will blink slightly. So your students and yourself will know that the session is currently being recorded. So again, this is another small tip that we provided your students, and we're letting you know as well, for them to identify if a session is being recorded or not. If a session is not being recorded at all, so if I hit stop, it'll provide you with one more confirmation if you want to stop the recording. There is no icon whatsoever. So if there is no circle there, it means that no recording is taking place whatsoever. Right. At this point, I will take a breath for you to ask your questions, and I'll comment on anything that we have already written here in our chat. So we have a comment here. Can we send the invitation the time of the session, or can you or can we do that when we set the meeting? All right, so I will cover this specific concern once we're done looking at the Webex application itself, because again, now that we've been doing live sessions for our face-to-face courses, we've seen a couple of issues show up where you do need to be able to invite people in advance. So I will cover that before we close out today's session. And again, if you have any other questions, you can ask them within the chat and I will address them. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in at this time, so I will just progress in this training for today. So let's say we've reached the end of our training. Oh, sorry, how do we have to invite the students? No, you do not have to invite students, but again, it's always good to know how to invite students in case you need to. All right, so again, I will be covering that in a moment. So if at any point you want to stop sharing your content of your screen, or you just want to go back to the default Webex application that we saw before, again, hover over the blue bar at the top of the page and you can click Stop Sharing. This will take us back to our initial view of the Webex activity. All right, so before I shared my desktop, I did mention that sharing my desktop is the most popular way for our lecturers to share content because they're not restricted by the content that they're trying to share besides the video. Because they can open up anything that they want on their computer, wherever it might be saved, and they can display that on their screen. But for some lectures, they just choose to present one file for their lecture. So they'll be focusing their attention on one PowerPoint presentation, perhaps. You can share that presentation directly through the platform without necessarily sharing your desktop. So to do that, you can click on the more sharing options available here, and you can choose to share a file. And this could also be a video file. So this is how you can share a video to your students that you have saved locally on your computer. So you can click on Share File instead of Share My Desktop. You click Share File, and you can browse your computer for a specific file that you want to provide to your students. So let's say I want to provide your students this PowerPoint presentation or this PDF document here. So you can click on the document, and it might take a minute or so to upload. Hopefully it doesn't give any errors. All right, once it's uploaded, it will be available to your students, and your students will view it as you are viewing it as a presenter. So as you scroll through the document, the students will scroll through the document as well. They won't have to control anything. Your motions in the document will be mimicked on the student's side. So that goes for your zoom level. So as I progress through this document, go to page 1, go to page 2, so on and so forth, that will be mimicked on the student's side as well. All right, so if you're just planning to show one document to the students, this is one good method of doing so. So you can just upload the document directly to the platform. The document will appear in a separate tab, so you can always upload a couple of documents. We've never reached the limit of the number of documents you can share in the application. For every document, it will open a new tab, and you can switch between the tabs as you're teaching, and that will be mimicked on the student's side as well. So everything that you have open will be viewable by your students as well. As you change page, this page will change for your students in kind. All right, so essentially this is everything that we needed to cover today regarding the Webex application itself. So again, if we have any questions, you can post them in the chat. We have a comment here. Can we organize group sessions with one meeting or training? Can students join in groups? I'm not sure if I understand your question entirely. Do you mean, do you want to create one session for a certain number of students? So let's say you have 10 students in your group, in your course, but you only want to have 5 of them attend this session and then schedule another session for another 5 students? Or do you mean have all 10 of them join the session and then split them into groups within the session? Okay. While I wait for a response on that comment, again, if there's anything else in the chat, you can ask through the chat. But in light of the question here, there is the option to have breakout sessions, and I'm going to be completely honest, I haven't used breakout sessions, so I'm not in the position to provide you with a lot of details regarding breakout sessions. But breakout sessions do allow you to split your attendees into subgroups within the live session. I'm not sure if those groups will be able to interact with each other or the interaction within the group itself. And I'm not sure how you as a presenter will be able to monitor the various groups in a live session, but I know that you are able to do it. If you want, feel free to do some quick Googling to find out how it works. If it's something that you find to be very useful, you could just let us know to also investigate it further and possibly create the resources and make them available for other lecturers to benefit from as well. All right. Okay. Another option that you have here is, again, if you want a session to be joined by a specific number of students, you can always create your sessions and maybe use the course forum to inform them, students A, B, C, D, please join the session at this time. As students E, F, G, H, please join the session starting at that time. And in that way, you can split the students up into groups during a live session. We have a question here. Can you please advise about the ability of the lecturer to write on the shared screen? So you are able to write on a shared screen, and your students are also allowed to write on a shared screen, provided that you give them the ability to do so. So if we share a document like I have shared now, you have the annotations readily available for you at the top of the page. For example, I can click on the pen icon here and I can start writing whatever I need to write on the document itself, and that will be reflected on the students. All right, if we're going back to the share my screen view, okay, you have the ability again under the, if you lower the blue bar here, you can annotate. Annotation allows you to do the same thing. You can indicate to students specific resources, you can doodle on your screen, you can highlight specific areas, you have pen, you're able to change up the color, you have the quick erase option there to erase certain items. You also can add text or arrows to designate certain things. All right, so there's potential to be had with the annotation tool. Okay, so you're not just limited to talking. Again, if this is something that you do in class, feel free to experiment, feel free to use it in as much way as you want. If you ever want to clear the screen, you can again use the eraser. You can clear everything, you can clear certain items, and if you stop annotating, that will remove all annotation from your screen at that point. Okay, we have another comment here in the chat. We have 3 teachers for our course. How can we have one teacher perform a tutorial with 4 specific students? So this is something I mentioned before. I'm assuming that all the teachers will be enrolled in the course in Moodle. So, any of the 3 teachers could go ahead and schedule a session, and again inform the students in advance of who should be available for which session, so that they know to join at the correct time or on the correct date. Because the Webex activity is not set up to allow groups itself, so if an activity did allow for groups, you would have this little group icon next to it, as you see here, this little person. But the Webex activity itself does not allow for groupings. So again, you can create your sessions and just inform the students which one to join at the particular date or time. Okay, we have a comment here. I've used breakout sessions today. Great. The students interact between each other within the groups. The lecturer can only hear one breakout session at a time by joining the session. Okay, so I guess you have that little bit of difficulty that which might be a little bit to your benefit, because if you can hear every group at the same time, it might be a little bit distorted for you. So I guess it's a good thing that you're able to switch focus between each group. All right, the annotation tool, where is that? So again, I'll repeat myself here. The annotation tool can be found if you hover while you're sharing your screen. If you hover over the blue bar, you have the annotation option here. So like we had participants chat recorder, we have annotation as well. Click on that and it brings up the annotation panel. So we have here Annotation Panel, and you can experiment with all of the options that you have here and draw attention to specific points within your presentation. All right, if we stop annotating, that will clear all the annotations. If I stop sharing my screen, and again, we have the option here for a shared document. Annotations are readily and immediately available from the annotations options on the upper left side of the screen. All right, are there any questions related to the Webex activity? All right, again, I'm not in the position to fully explain breakout sessions because within the distance learning department we haven't used them, nor have our lecturers used them. So I'm not in the position, at least today, to provide you with more explanation regarding breakout sessions. Yes, we have a comment here. If you want to see a student screen as they present, yes, you just change their role to presenter, and that will give them the ability to share their screen. Again, you can only have one presenter at a time. So if your student is presenting, obviously you are not presenting, and you can always take back the presenter role from your students by clicking, right-clicking your name, change role to presenter, and you'll take back the presenter role from your students, that specific student at least. Okay. I don't see any other questions coming in through the chat right now. So at this point, I guess we can close the Webex session and we can move on to how do we find the recordings of each session. So once you're done with your presentation, once you're done with your lecture, you're free to close that, and by closing the session, that will essentially remove all the students as well from the session. So the students won't be able to rejoin until you have. So to close the session, all you have to do is click the X on the upper right corner to close the session. You will always be given one final confirmation. Do you want to end the training session for all the participants? By clicking End Session, your session will be closed. If you wait a couple of seconds, a feedback form will load as you see here, but you can go ahead and close that. Oops, sorry. You can go ahead and close that. It's not necessary. We have another comment here. If we need a screenshot of their screen to annotate it, how can we do that? So if a student is presenting and you want to annotate something on their screen, you can go ahead and do that. So as a presenter, you have the ability, as the host of the session, you have the ability to annotate the screen of other presenters. So you just enable the annotation tab for yourself, because you, as the host of the session, have that ability, and you'll be able to then annotate on your student's screen as well. All right, so back to our Moodle page, and we'll continue on with our training. So we've done our training, our Webex session for today, and what has happened to the recording of that session. So what I've advised all of our lecturers and students up until now, please allow 24 hours for a recording to appear in your course. It might take less than 24 hours, but usually 24 hours is the maximum amount of time that it will take for a recording to appear in your course. Especially if it's a longer duration recording, it will take more time. So where do you and where do your students find the recordings for these sessions? That is again found in the Webex activity for the course. So by clicking on the Webex sessions, the Webex activity, we come back here, we see upcoming sessions because, because the duration of the session, the time hasn't passed, this still appears here in upcoming sessions. But we also have this past meetings tab here. By clicking on that, it will list all of the recordings, all the past sessions for this course. Any session that has a recording associated with it will be presented. So you have this view recording under the specific session there. Any session that doesn't have a recording available, either because A, it wasn't recorded, or B, it hasn't been the full 24 hours for the recording to appear, will have this no recording available text written there. So again, please allow for up to 24 hours for a recording to become available in your course before you start getting concerned. All right. We do have some instances where lecturers have created their sessions using that recurring option, like I mentioned earlier in our training today, where if you have recurring sessions, every session will appear here under the past session, but the recording for every session will be identical. We're not sure what causes that issue, but in that case, this is why I'm saying possibly avoid using recurring sessions. But in that case, you'll have to find the recording on the Webex website. I'll show you how to do that in a moment, and then post the recording information in the course. All right. Another thing that might occur, and this, again, we're not sure the reason for this happening, is you've recorded your session went fine, the recording was perfectly fine, it's been more than 24 hours, but the recording is still not available in the course. In this instance, again, please go to the Webex website, find the recording information there, and post it in your course. All right, so I'll be showing you how to do that now, and following that I will also show you how to get the session information in the cases that you need to invite students manually to a live session for whatever the reason might be that you need to do that. All right, so again, if it's been more than 24 hours or for whatever reason a recording is not available in your course when it should be, please go to the Webex website, log into your account there, and we can grab the information from there and post it to our course. So how do we do this? We go again to the Webex website, which is again globaltraining.webex.com. We sign in, which I'm already signed in from the start of the session today. From here, you need to find your recording. So all your recordings are saved here under the recordings menu item. So if you click on recordings, it's found on the left side of your page once you log in. Click on that for me. And all the recordings that have been created in your account will be listed here. You'll also notice that the recording that I did for the Webex session that I was using for today's training also appears here, but you can see it says generating. So this is one way that you can see that, okay, I did record it and it's still being processed to be available in the course. But a session that I did 2 days ago is still not available in the course. What do I do with that? So what you can do is find the recording from the list of recordings that you have here. This is another reason why I mentioned that it's always good to have your course code in the name of the session, because if you're naming your sessions identically across all your courses, which some lecturers do on occasion, and which has raised some issues for them, it makes it a little bit more difficult for you to find which recording belongs to which course. So again, include a name in the session, include the course code in the session so you can clearly identify what it's for. Find the session that you want to post, and if you go to the right side of the page, you have this option, share. It's the second option available to you of the 3 buttons. So if you click on share, it will load up this share recording dialog for you. All right. From here, you do not need to send it to specific people, because that would be a little bit labor intensive if you need to copy and paste all of your students' information. What I do suggest is find the link for the session and just click on the copy URL button available on the right. All right, it will tell you that it has been copied, and you'll see a little check mark there and the text copied appeared. So now that link is copied to your clipboard of your computer. It's not necessary to change any other settings here. I recommend not putting a password, because that provides another barrier to your students. So just simply copy the URL as it is. From here, what you can do is go to your course, go back to the course page, and you can go to your course forum and paste it there. So you can inform your students, let's say click add a new discussion topic. Oh, ignore that, that's old. Add a new discussion topic. You can say recording for session and possibly put a date. That one was for the 23rd of March. And if you click paste here, it will paste the title of the session plus the link. Obviously, you can add more information into the message here before you send it out to your students. So this is one way that you can provide your students with the recording if for whatever reason it doesn't appear in the Webex activity. All right, so we have our information here. Click post to forum and your message will be posted to the forum successfully added, and that is available here for your students to view as well. All right, so this is what we recommend for you to do in the cases that your recording doesn't automatically appear in your course within 24 hours. All right, is there any questions up until this point? Again, if you'd like me to repeat anything, if you'd like me to go through the process one more time, that's perfectly fine. We have the time for me to do that. All right, again, I don't see any questions coming in through the chat, so I guess I'll proceed to the next item, which is the last item for today. Before I do that, I would like to remind everybody, if they can, please fill in this registration form so we can just mark attendance for today's training so we know who has attended. That would be highly appreciated as well. All right, I've sent the link to the form through the chat. It just requires your name and if you're teaching in inter-college or UNIC or both. So just very simple information. All right. So the last thing that I want to cover today is how do we invite people to our session in the case that the Webex activity for some reason is not working at the time. It has happened, so I want to provide you with all the possible ways that you can overcome that. If the Webex activity isn't working, you need to be able to inform your students of how to enter the session. All right, so for a student to be able to enter a session, they need to have at least the session link and the session password. All right, so they need to have these pieces of information. So I need to show you how can you get that information. So if we come back to the Webex website from the home page, what you'll see here is your upcoming meetings, upcoming sessions page as soon as you log in. All right, if you scheduled many things in advance, you'll also be able to search for specific meetings here. Again, another reason why it's good to have your course codes in the title, so you can essentially just write in a course code here and it will bring up everything related to that. All right, so once you find the session that you need to get the information for, you can essentially just click on the session title. So I have this session set up for tomorrow. I can click on that and it will provide me, it will take me to this page here. From here, what you can do is you can click on the edit button available at the bottom of the page. And what I recommend, if it isn't already selected, select the send a copy of the attendee invitation to me. So select that, and what this will do, it will email you a copy of the invitation that you can forward to your students. All right, and once you get that email, you can essentially just copy the information and send it to your students. Another method that you can get the same invitation is to invite yourself as an attendee. So inviting yourself as an attendee, you can essentially go down to the attendees area, click on invite attendees, enter your information here. I'll put my university email. and click Add Attendee. From there, you'll want to invite them, and then scroll to the bottom of the page and click Update. So either of these two methods will provide you with the session information in order to provide to your students. In order to provide it to your students. So the first one was send a copy of the attendee invitation to me, or invite yourself as an attendee to the presentation. Even though you're inviting yourself as an attendee, you will still have your presenter and host role within the course. This is just for you to get the invitation. So by clicking Update, it will ask you, who do you want to send the updated information to? You can send it to all the invited participants, because essentially you're the only one in the session, and you will receive an email with that information. All right, so I just received the email, and I will open that up for you here. There we go. So this is the invitation email that I have received for the session that I have tomorrow. The invitation that the information that your students need is everything here under to join the training session. So you can essentially copy this and the 5 points that it provides you there. Copy. And we want to send this information to your students. All right. So you can do this in one of two ways, depending on how much time you have left until the session begins. So you can use your course forum again and compose a message here to provide it to your students. It would be ideal to use the course forum if the session is more than 24 hours away, because students get an email for all their forum messages only once a day, and that's usually in the evening. So if your session is in the next 2 hours, it's better not to post it in the forum, but to send a direct message to the students. So you'll only use the course forum. It's recommended to use the course forum if your session is more than 24 hours from right now. All right, and again, you'll go to your course forum, add a new discussion topic, enter a subject, session details, for example, details for the session on 28th of March. You can paste that there and post that to the forum. All right, so this is one method that you can use, and the students will receive this in an email within that specific during that evening. All the students have to do is click on the link, enter the session password, click on join now, and they're sorted. But let's say for some reason your session is in an hour and you don't have time to wait for the course forum and for that to send a message. How do you get the information across to all of your students immediately right now? The best way to do that is to send them all a message through the course. So how do you do that? You want to find the participants page. So that's usually available on the left side of the page, just below the course shortcode. So it's usually the second option here. You click on participants. All right. And from here, you will see a list of all the students within your course. You can click select all to select all the students in your course, which I will not do because there's a lot of people here that don't need to receive an extra email for no reason. So I'm just going to select myself and a couple of colleagues to that I want to send this invitation to. So you select the people, your students who you'd like to send an invitation to. Scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and you have with selected users do what? From choose, select send a message. All right. This will tell you that you're sending a message to how many people. I've selected 3. If you select all your students, it will update that number there. And again, you can paste the session information here. If you click send message, your students will get that message almost instantaneously. So it'll probably be within the next minute to 10 minutes that they will receive the message to their emails or they will have a message notification up here in their Moodle account as well. So that's how you can inform students the fastest. All right. I have a couple of comments in the chat. Is there a minimum number of students attending for recording to start? Technically, no. You could start a session. You could start a session recording even if there are no students, but that might be because students are late, or for whatever reason students aren't able to join the session. This is why I've provided you with the methods of how to invite your students manually if need be. So there is no minimum, well, there is no policy on the minimum number of students, but it's what you would do in your normal face-to-face class. I assume you would wait for a certain number of students before you start teaching. We have another comment here. Can we have a copy of the attendance list for our session? Is there in the past sessions in Moodle, it does not show all the students that attended the session. So yes, we do know that this is an issue with the past meetings. If you do click on a title for any past session, it usually shows you, well, not this one, because no one attended the session. Let me find something that might have had other, exactly here. So we can see that one student attended the session and it will list their details below. But we do have some instances where we know that there was, let's say, 20 students that attended the session, but it doesn't list everyone there. In this case, you can do one of two things. Either at some point during the session, you know, maybe if you're going to take a break, pause the session, take your attendance, mark down all the students' names that appear in the attendees list in the live session. Or the other method is view the recording of the session, and you'll be able to see the participants list in the recording as well. So it would have been ideal if the participants list from just clicking the title would be you know, accurate, but unfortunately it's not always 100% accurate. So again, take your attendance during the live session or review the recording afterwards to see what students were available there. All right. All right. Is there a maximum duration of a recording? We've currently never reached a maximum duration of a recording. A recording can be from 1 minute up to however long it's necessary for you to teach your material. We have some courses, not necessarily unique courses, but from other functions at the university where sessions were as long as 6 hours. So I think you are within your comfort zone of a normal 1.5 to 3 hour lesson. We have the option, the comment here. Can you show how to edit in the session page in Webex again? All right, so I'll show that one more time. So from your Webex account, I came back to Webex, globaltraining.webex.com. You sign in, and this is the page that you first see when you log in. You should see all the meetings, upcoming meetings that you have, or upcoming meetings that you're invited to. Any meeting that you have created, you will be able to also start from here, but I advise you to start them from the course. But any meeting that you are able to start means that you are the one who created it, so you are able to invite people and get the session information for. So you can find the session on the upcoming meetings here, or again, you can search for it using the search bar at the top of the page. Once you found your session, you simply have to click on the session title, and that will take you to a session information page here. It provides you with some basic information regarding your session, but what you want to do is go to the bottom of the page and click on Edit. From there, this will allow you to, again, edit your session, make any changes that you think are necessary. Again, send a copy of the attendee invitation to me. We'll send you an email with the session details if you need to provide those to your students. You can invite yourself as an attendee, or if you have a guest lecturer or someone who's not available, who does not have an account in Moodle, who you want to have access to a specific live session, you can choose to invite them as an attendee or a presenter. It's the same functionality. You just have to put their name and their email address, click on invite, and once you've done all of that, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page and click update. All right, and that will prompt you to, sorry, there might be an error somewhere here, no, and that will provide you with an option to send out the session details one more time. All right, to yourself or anyone else that is invited. Are there any other questions for today's training? All right, again, I don't see any other questions coming in through the chat. So the final point that I'd like to make for today is that all of this information is documented in the university's knowledge base, which is here regarding everything related to WebEx. It's under the Cisco WebEx. Edit is not clickable. Okay, edit is not clickable if either the session has passed or you're not one that has, or you're not the person that has created it, but I'll get to that in a moment. So what we have here is all the information related to WebEx and how to use it through Moodle. I will send you a link to this page through the chat, so please bookmark this. Almost everything that I've said today is available somewhere in these manuals. And we have notes for almost everything, how to, manually posting WebEx recordings, we covered that today. How to access the recordings, we covered today. There's a breakdown of what the different roles are in Moodle, in a WebEx session available here. Everything that we covered regarding the user interface, how to join a session, essentially everything that we've covered today in the past 2 hours is available in this documentation here. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to contact Stelios. His details are in the chat. If Stelios is unable to help, he will forward your concerns to me, and we will help you in any way that's possible. Again, you say that in the chat here we have a comment, edit is not clickable. Again, edit is usually not clickable if you're the person that, if you were invited to a session but did not create it, you usually aren't able to edit a session. If the session has already passed, then again, you're not able to edit it, or if a session is currently in progress, you're not able to edit it. But if you're sure that you are the one that created the session and it hasn't passed yet, please send me a screenshot so I can just double check if there's anything there that I'm missing. We have another comment here. So even if we set the meeting through Moodle, the WebEx platform will immediately have the information of that meeting. The answer is yes, because the activity within Moodle is linked to the WebEx service, the WebEx website here. So all the information, where we basically added this activity in Moodle to make your lives easier and to make the students' lives easier, to sort of automate some of the process. So you don't have to create a session in WebEx, find the details, post it to the students, and then once the session is completed, again, find the recording, post it to the students. But we do know that the activity within Moodle is a little bit buggy, so you might have to end up doing some of this anyways, but the number of people who have to do the manual work is far less than those who use the activity successfully. So again, there is a learning curve to all of this. We're all doing our best, especially in the current situation, especially our IT teams throughout the university and into college. We're all trying to maintain control for all the faculty and to provide as best a service as possible. Okay, so if there are no other questions, we can round out today's session. We can close it up here. I'll leave the session open for the next few minutes. I'll have my microphone on mute, but I will leave the session open for the next few minutes. So if you do have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat, and I'll just join back in and respond to those as well. All right. But again, if there are no other questions, it's a good night from me, and I hope everybody stays safe in the current situation that we have and stays healthy. If you have any questions, feel free to email myself or Stelios, and again, we will provide you with as much support as we are able to. Oh, and a final reminder, please fill in the registration form so we can mark who was present today. Thank you.